Alright, welcome back. My name is Bardic, bringing you another Ashes of Creation video. If you do enjoy the content and you want to see more of it, please do drop a like and subscribe. I also stream Ashes of Creation on Twitch if you want to swing by. We've actually been doing a show on my Twitch channel every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. PST called Two Guys and a Bard. It's hosted by myself and fellow content creators It's Fane and Super TCG. We've actually banked up a couple weeks of episodes and clips, and we're going to be posting those on its own YouTube channel starting this Friday. I'll leave a link to it in the description below for anyone interested. As always, a huge shout out to everyone who has been supporting the channel. I'll keep posting content weekly and be adding in even more as we get further into AOC testing. Let me know if there's anything in particular you would like to see. With that said, let's jump into the video. So today, we're going to be looking at metas and how they form in games. And as always, we'll be comparing it to what we are expecting to see in Ashes of Creation. Now, some people say that meta stands for the most efficient tactic available. I don't really want to get into this never-ending argument of whether that's actually true, if that's a backronym, or something else. Let's just say that is a fairly accurate way of describing how the word is currently used in gaming. Almost every single game ends up with some form of established meta eventually. This is largely due to the internet and the easy consolidation of information. Back before Google, content creators, and data mining, you had to actually meet up with people, discuss, and play the game to gain more information and points of view. Metas would establish within certain friend groups or regions, but it was often different, and breaking a meta was far more common without needing to change the game itself. Now, you can just hop onto YouTube or some game website and see an amalgamation of theory crafting from people across the world. This makes it far easier to figure out optimal gameplay and mechanics. Some people do enjoy trying to figure it out themselves, but some of the most popular content on YouTube are build guides and tutorials. Using all of this information, a meta will eventually form, and then more and more people switch to playing whatever is strongest, as it's the best way to compete. People then begin to stop playing as the discovery side of the game disappears. There are people who take pride in trying to find or play a meta breaker, but with modern tools and analysis for games, they are rarely successful. This is one of the reasons a new game launch, expansion, or major patch is so fun. People love discovering and learning the new systems, but when that ends, only the hardcore fans are left. Modern tools make that discovery period shorter than ever, and make it almost impossible for games to keep up with the rate at which players devour the content. So what does this mean for Ashes of Creation? Well, there are generally two reasons players stop playing a game. A stagnant meta, a lack of content, or both. A meta becomes stagnant, especially in PvP games, when some class or group composition is clearly established as the best and nothing arises that can beat it. In a game where players drive a lot of the content, I think a stagnant meta could be disastrous. The game is highly dependent on healthy server populations to be successful. Each server is absolutely massive and relies on lots of players to be able to level up nodes and populate the world. As players begin to stop playing or even take a break from the game because the meta has established and the discovery phase is over, it will have a cascading effect. Servers will begin to feel empty and it will become hard to get anything done. This will only cause more people to stop playing and servers will die. Ashes of Creation can't have player-driven content. There's a lack of players. And I'm not saying you need 100% player retention. Natural ebb of players between major content releases is fine, as long as there's enough to stick around for servers to maintain healthy populations. This is actually one of my major concerns about the game. I've seen it happen in a number of sandbox games, where after the initial interest dies off, it kills the game. And this is something I really don't want to see happen to Ashes. Luckily, Ashes of Creation isn't full sandbox, which should hopefully give plenty of non-player driven content as well. Different developers have taken different approaches to combat this issue. We've seen everything from paid server transfers, force server transfers or merges to cross-realm content. Ashes of Creation is not going to have any server transfers or cross-realm content because of the problems they cause. Those systems cause servers to lose their sense of community, allow people to not have to worry about their reputation, and potentially ruin economies. This means Ashes is going to have to find another way to deal with unhealthy servers. Intrepid is already taking steps to prevent a meta from ever becoming stagnant. You don't need to deal with unhealthy servers if the players don't stop playing. There are two major things within the game's design that I think will help achieve this. The first is the idea of variable content. Metas and meta slaves are established when you have constant content. Ashes of Creation plans to have variable content in which your server may not have the same content as everyone else. With how the node system works in Ashes of Creation, endgame content will be locked behind different nodes reaching the Metropolis stage. Out of 103 nodes, only 5 can be Metropolises at any given point, which means you may have access to completely different content, recipes, and items than any other server based on which nodes you have at the Metropolis stage. It will take a month or two to even raise a node to Metro. Then there is a 21-day cooldown after a node reaches a Metro before you can siege it, and a 50-day cooldown after a node survives a siege. This means it won't be easy to just jump around and do content locked behind different nodes. I think this is actually going to take gaming back to what was mentioned at the beginning of the video, where different regions and groups will form their own meta. A bunch of smaller metas like this is a lot easier to shake up when something new is discovered or unlocked. It seems like a couple months is the average time it takes for a meta to become stagnant, which may be why the cooldowns are where they're at. Aside from variable content, there's also the traditional way that most developers use to shake up the meta, and that is through balance changes or introducing new content to the game. Ashes of Creation is actually in a unique position. I don't know if this is something they plan to do, but with how content is locked behind nodes, they could actually introduce new content seamlessly without even telling people. Just throw a new dungeon or boss with new recipes and materials into the world and have it locked behind some node. Players would just naturally stumble upon it, which encourages people to constantly explore and change the world around them. Imagine doing this with some legendary item and your team is the first to find it. It would be absolutely epic and a very memorable gaming moment. Now, the other system that will help prevent a stagnant meta is the way they intend to balance combat. If you've not already seen my video that takes an in-depth look at how Intrepid is approaching balance, there's a link at the top of the video. The short of it is that Ashes of Creation will not be balanced, at least not in the traditional sense. It will be balanced around group combat, and there will be hard counter systems. Certain builds will be better at certain things within the game and will be able to counter other builds. This hard counter system makes it like a game of cat and mouse, where you are trying to anticipate what your enemy is bringing and bring whatever counters it. Now, I don't want to get too into what makes a compelling counter system, and if Intrepid will actually be able to achieve this. That is actually going to be a separate video that I'm already working on. Assuming they are able to, it prevents a meta from ever becoming stagnant. When one build or class becomes too prominent, more of its counter starts to pop up. Now, unfortunately, no matter what Intrepid does, at some point they are going to have to deal with dying servers. There are so many reasons this could happen, no matter how much they do for player retention. The goal, however, is to have these few and far between. Steven has said that they will do server merges when this arises. A server merge is hugely disruptive and potentially upsetting to both sides. One side will have to leave their server and everything they worked on, while the other server has an influx of new players thrown into the mix. This could potentially screw up politics, economy, and more on their server. If done properly, however, this could be the injection of new and different content both servers need. But if done improperly, could end up with a lot of unhappy people. The obvious goal is to merge servers as little as possible. When it does happen, however, I hope that Intrepid makes it some kind of event that makes sense in the world. For example, the people on the server being merged could have an event where corruption starts to sprout everywhere. They end up with a repeat of the apocalypse in which they have to fight off corrupted beings as they grab all the resources from their server and retreat through the divine portals. Players from the other server could even port over and help them defend against the horde. It would be a fun and dynamic way to give both servers some new and exciting content and a reason for the change within the game itself. Obviously, this is hopefully something we won't have to worry about until a while after launch, but it's definitely something we can hope for. Other servers might even be a little jealous. I think Steven is very aware of the dangers of what different metas can do to a competitive game. It seems like Intrepid is taking the right steps to make sure there are never content droughts or stagnant metas within Ashes of Creation that will cause players to lose interest. Let me know if you agree with this in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, see you on the next one.